Yes, we'll be with you shortly. Welcome. Last week we cast a wide net to include those of you who might be new to the concept of a law of attraction. This week we're going to do the opposite. We're going to assume you've looked at our model of reality, our theory of everything, and if you're still with us, that you've decided that it's worthy of further exploration. This week we're not going to appeal to your logic. This week we're going to take you inside yourself, because it's our knowing that you all have an innate awareness of absolute truth. For many of you, it's long buried. But we're going to get you to rummage around in that mind of yours and see if together we can rediscover that truth and rev up the engine of your desire and your zest for living. Last week, we also said that nobody can prove anything to anybody, because proof as a logical concept can only apply to physical evidence in a physical world. This week's discussion is taking place in what we would call the real world, the world of thought, because you're a consciousness, and it's what you think that counts. What's more, you're a very complex consciousness. Let's just look at two of those layers, the conscious thinking you and the subconscious you, and see how the boundaries between those layers are permeable. Try this. Right now, simply hold your breath for 1 second and notice that you can. That simple act is you saying to your subconscious, I'm taking over my breathing here for a short time. If you stood up and walked to the door, you could consciously and deliberately decide where to place your feet every step of the way. You could also consciously and laboriously choose every word you ever speak. Normally, of course, you don't do any of those things because your subconscious walks you and talks you and breathes you. But these are simple examples of how easy it is to push that boundary aside and exercise conscious control over things you normally leave to your autopilot. In different ways, of course, you get a lot of daily practice at moving back and forth between these two layers. But beyond these two, there's your superconscious, and beyond that, ultimately, your connection to source. And most of you don't practice much moving into those deeper or higher realms. But you can. You can meditate. And as Deepak says, the more often you dive into the silent mind, the deeper your intentions will be coming from when you're not meditating. But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. For the present, just recognize that you're a complex consciousness, and let's do some exploration. This week, Rachel pointed this one to a Mike Dooley video introducing his course on The Matrix, and he heard these words. Begin living your life deliberately, as you always suspected you could, alive in a paradise, cloaked in the illusion of matter, to discover that you truly do have dominion over all things. Life is not something that happens, not to any one of us. We happened to life. We came first. To which, of course, we say, Amen. That's what this is all about. But here are the words that really rang true for this one. As you always suspected you could. So can you live life deliberately with dominion over all things? We say, at the superconscious level, you know you can. And at the beginning of this life on earth story of yours, the conscious thinking you knew you could. And now here we are in the middle of your story. And it's no accident that you're here with us today. You're here because deep within you, you're still harboring the suspicion that there's more to this than meets the eye. And we say, indeed there is. And if you have the honesty and curiosity to come with us right now as we delve further into the beginnings of you, you'll see it for yourself. And you'll move beyond the nonsense of proving things right or wrong and into the profound experience of true knowing. So let's go back to the point where you moved from a consciousness that completely transcended space and time to a consciousness shaped as you now experience it. There you were, at the starting point of your current space-time story. And what a huge change it was as you merged into this physical body on this physical planet called Earth. Your whole world was within 4 walls. And there were physical shapes you could see that moved around you and fed you and reacted to the sounds you could make. At first, all things were possible. And then as you grew more familiar with these shapes, you learned their language and you had fun with them as you began to communicate with them. And then, slowly at first, you began to be aware of something very foreign to your intrinsic nature, limits. There appeared to be some limits to what you could do, be, or have. Let's move ahead a short time here to the point where these people, who seem to know a lot about this world you were in, first told you something wasn't physically possible. And you began to believe them. And your world got a little smaller and some doors disappeared. And at some point, someone told you there's no Santa Claus and no Easter Bunny. And you began to believe them. And your world became magic-less. And some more doors disappeared. And when you asked where babies come from, they told you the birth story and how you're going to grow up and get old and die. And you began to believe them. And your world started to look inevitable. And some more doors disappeared. And then they told you you can't have that particular thing because things cost money. And money doesn't grow on trees. And you began to believe them. And your world started to look like struggle. And some more doors disappeared. So, fast forward to now. Looking at that backstory of yours, can you see how those millions of belief choices you made have fenced you into this very physical and finite and inevitable and constraining illusion of reality? And somewhere along the way, that small invincible child in the Superman or Wonder Woman costume disappeared. And you settled into the role of being a sensible, realistic adult in a world with some wonderful things, but also some not so wonderful things, and struggle and worry and some very definite limits. And you learn to cope, mostly, because sometimes it's not so easy. So right now, in the middle of all this practical reality, we invite you to get off the train. Stop. Just stop for a minute and get quiet and go within. We want you to find that place in your mind where you're still harboring that totally ridiculous suspicion that you're a powerful being. Find that place. Recognize that suspicion. Open it up and set it free as we tell you one more time what you already know. It goes like this. The reason you're still harboring that ridiculous suspicion is because it's the truth of who you are. And even though day in and day out you practice thinking that it's not, you can never fully extinguish the fantastic idea that you're not just a physical being in a physical world. And that's because you are not. You're a timeless and spaceless thinking being that's connected to everything else that timelessly exists. You were born out of your unique and individual intentions and desires and choices. And you grew and changed with every new choice. And with every change, your context changed and reflected those changes back to you. This thing you call the law of attraction is way more powerful than that label suggests. Quite simply, it's the fundamental organizing principle of all things that ever existed in every realm that ever existed. This is how your universe works. It's how our universe works. That lifetime of choices you made has defined you and your world. And all those belief choices were self-reinforcing because they alone are the indomitable force that shapes and maintains that illusion of yours that has wrapped itself around you. In other words, your belief choices establish their own positive feedback loop. And as you locked into knowing this thing or that thing to be true, the version of this so-called reality you're in transformed itself into compliance with those choices. Whatever decisions you came to became your truth. And look around you. Your world has lined up with that truth. So we say, bravo to that ridiculous suspicion and understand what it means. It means whatever you choose to believe becomes your reality. And so, once again, we encourage you to take a stand with yourself. Practice being aware on a more ongoing basis of the pattern of your thoughts, because those thoughts are powerful. Every thought you think and every word you speak that echoes those thoughts, these are the building blocks of your world. And if you discover there's something you want to change, choose something new to focus on and think about and believe new stuff about it. And let those beliefs flow into expectations until they are woven into the fabric of your total consciousness. When you totally expect miracles to happen, they do. They must. And so there's nothing ever that's really miraculous out there, is there? It's just you doing your thing. Each time you choose a different thought, it makes a difference. Each small choice, each deliberately different thought creates movement in the fabric of your existence. And as you be here and now in this world of yours, playing with new thoughts, let yourself feel within you that you are different now than you were just a moment ago. Each new thought makes a huge difference. This new thought right now has made a difference. Let yourself feel within you the power of that new thought. See before you a world that has shifted, and feel yourself emerging into that new version of your virtual reality, and harbor those glorious suspicions that point you at who you really are. Let yourself feel you are always connected, in love, part of eternal source. Let yourself feel that you can choose what to be, where to be, how to be, what to do and what to have. Let yourself feel how the world wraps itself around you as it conforms exactly to your tapestry of beliefs and assumptions and expectations. Let yourself feel you can change your tapestry and your world will always mirror those changes. Let yourself feel you can mix it up with those other timeless consciousnesses you've attracted into your world. Let yourself know what it feels like to be on the leading edge with new rockets of desire and creating new things. Let yourself feel the awareness of who you are at your core. We began today by thinking about how you can step over the boundary of conscious choice and into taking charge of things that you normally leave to your subconscious self. You do enough of that from time to time that it's easy. Not so practiced, perhaps, is moving beyond the boundary between you and your superconscious self, as we have encouraged you to do here today. But you can give yourself permission to do that because, after all, who's in charge here? You can choose to expect that you can, and you're the decider. So we recommend you choose every day to spend some time getting quiet and learning to be you. We know you, and we can truthfully tell you you're a lot of fun to know. So what happened to Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny? Well, along with Peter Pan and Wendy and Tinkerbell, they are alive and well, of course, because there are some of you in some old or young versions of you that imagine that they are. It may not be on your particular wish list to bring those magical characters back to life in your reality. But here's the truth of it. You could if you wanted to, because there's nothing you cannot be, do, or have. You're limited only by your imagination, and that has no limits. And now we'll move to our longer discussion. We will talk some more about that Superman or Wonder Woman that's living still within you. And we'll answer any questions you might have.